And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what?
China.
All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China.
Russian.
Russia.
Italian.
Italy.
German.
Germany.
Swedish.
Sweden.
Korean.
Korea.
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
Garfield Reed claims that there's a gentleman who made a documentary on the subject and sold it to a university. He might be bringing out more information on that. That it was a gentleman who was, studied in Hebrew and looked at it and concluded that, I forget what the conclusion was. But
Garfield asked specifically, why would I even let, Pastor Kelly speak about him specifically? Why would I even give him the floor to discuss these things? But I believe things do need to be discussed. This, in that sense, is bad if he made an original video trying to claim that these are our people building these churches were Hebrews and building these pews, they were Hebrews, and this was the faith that they were practicing, and they knew it, and the powers that be are hiding it. If it was used as an evangelistic tool and it come to find out it's not right and exact, the pastor has to say, all right, I made a little error here. The church people have to change certain things, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that still don't have anything to do with blacks in America being Hebrew, but that was just faulty. I can't stand on that and ride on it on the strength that somebody's a pastor, and just because pastors say, because y'all are just as bad as the black church now. Just believe in pastor without doing any research. I mean, maybe everybody as an urban apologist don't automatically agree with everything that Vocab said. But like I said, Vocab, his good outweighs his bad to the urban apologetic community with the amount of work that he put in, because all Vocab basically is on Islam a little bit here and there, but he's heavy with the Israelite thing.
Wait, that don't sound right. Just wait 1 second. That don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right.
I want to say peace and blessings, family. Hope all is well with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and get everything set up here. Hope all is well. My apologies for not sending out or posting a calendar to a scheduled live, so that way you guys could plan your schedule around it accordingly. So my apologies. What's going on here? Let's see what's going on here. All right. All right, that's what I want up there. There you go. All right. we're going to get started here in a second, but you know how we do. Want to just start off by going through the chat here and see who we have here. Again, my apologies for not sharing giving you a heads up to prepare for the lesson tonight. And tonight we're going to deal with Santa Claus on trial, and just give you a sample of some of the things I'm going to present, and I'm going to present it in the form of a case. So if any of you guys in the chat is interested in being a juror, and what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to reach out to Pastor Johnson as well, because he's going to participate as well, and we'll schedule it for next Shabbat. Well, actually, Saturday night, the first day of the week, which is Saturday night next weekend. We'll go ahead and we'll schedule it so that way we could go ahead and do it in the form of a case. You guys will be the jury, and me and Pastor Johnson will present our case. He'll present the case of supporting Santa Claus, and I'm going to present the case not to support Santa Claus, not to support Christmas. And it's going to be really good. It's going to be really good. So tonight I'm going to share with you a little bit of the presentation here. So let's start off by giving shout outs to Devorah Cotton. I want to say peace and blessings to you. Shalom to you. I want to say peace and blessings to African Angel. Who else do we have here? DeAndre Ripley. Shalom to you, my brother. Brian Samuels. Shalom to you as well. Sister Melinda, peace and blessings to you. Be encouraged, and we're praying for you, because it is serious out here with these vaccines. And matter of fact, I'm going to upload what I did. I've been meaning to do it. I have like 10 minutes left of it that I need to complete, but I'm just going to upload what I have that I did like 7 months ago about the whole coronavirus. But nevertheless, be encouraged, my sister. We in this together. And let's just pray for our people as a whole, all right? Because we all have to face that challenge of that virus. Are we going to take it, or are we going to say no to the vaccine? But nevertheless, be encouraged, my sister. I appreciate you. Peace and blessings, second Exodus. I want to say shalom to you. Also, Mayim Yah, I want to say peace and blessings to you. Janae, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Forgive me if I didn't. Want to say shalom to you. Sister Carol, want to say shalom lak, mash paka akwaf. Peace and blessings to you. Want to say Miss V Mac, want to say peace and blessings to you. Who else do we have? Being Changed. Man, I like that. I like that that title. Shalom to you as well. Angie Love Yah. Absolutely. Shalom to you as well. Robert Callahan, want to say peace and blessings to you, my brother. Appreciate you tuning in. Who else do we have here? Angie Love Yah. That's right. We love Yah. We love the Most High. DBT, peace and blessings. Shabbat shalom to you. Who else do we have here? My buddy Jay High Style. Appreciate you, my brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate all you guys, your prayers and support. Who else do we have here? Larry Carnell Bryce. This is my brother right here. Larry Bryce, how you doing, my brother? Peace and blessings to you. Appreciate all that you do. Appreciate you being online here as well. Who else do we have here? Ashonda, want to say peace and blessings to you. And I'm going to put the link. If you want to jump in, feel free to let me know if you want to chime in. And again, we're going to do Santa Claus on trial next weekend. So if you want to be part of the just have a little fun with the people, but we can use that as a proper way, to really go hard on really exposing this deceptive system. I want to say peace and blessings. So I'll put the link inside the chat here. So anytime if you want to jump on in, feel free to do so. Who else do we have here? Ruhama, I want to say peace and blessings to my cousin. Peace and blessings to you, my sister. Salama to you as well. Victor Wynn, I want to say shalom to you. Shalom, rather, to you as well. All right, let's see who else do we have here. All right, I think I got everyone. I think I mentioned second Exodus, but I want to say peace and blessings to you. That's right. It's really a speedy trial. But you guys know how I like to teach. I like to go into the details. I don't like just to put information out there. I like to walk you through the process. Peace and blessings to Inspired Identity. Shalom to you, my sister. Appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to tune in tonight. All right. So with that being said, let me see what I'm going to do here. Let me put this in the comments section. All right. And just going to give you a little sample of the presentation here. All right. I'm going to give you a sample. All right. So anyone that wants to be part of the jury, feel free to let me know. And again, appreciate you guys for tuning in, and be on the lookout for the video. Part 2 is going to drop this weekend. Part 2 of the Crafty Council. And we're going to put the whole pew thing to rest. We're going to really, I'm not going to say shut down the naysayers, because they're going to speak regardless. They're going to have their own opinions, but we are going to address the stuff that's been circulating out there with confidence. All right. When I say with confidence, with confident. Okay. So with that being said, let's see here. We're going to go ahead and get started here. And let me get my presentation up here, and we'll get set here. All right. All right. So the doctrine of the destruction of people. All right. The doctrine of the destruction of people. All right. So that's what we're going to deal with tonight. The doctrine of destruction of people. So before I get started here, I want to walk you guys through this here. I want to give some clarity on here. Give a little, just a couple of legal terms here. I want to introduce to you the term, the presentation of the evidence. I want to start off by giving you that presentation, or that thought, the presentation of the evidence. Every court case, you have to go through this process of presenting your evidence. And so I want to lay this down just so that way you, as the jury, you understand your roles and responsibilities. You understand what the evidence, what it means to have evidence, all right, and how to properly look at and read and process the evidence, all right? So want to make sure that you guys understand this, and I'm going to explain the presentation of evidence. I'm going to show you from a perspective of the legal system, of what they say and how they define that portion of the case. All right. Because that is very important. If you don't understand that portion of it, as a lawyer, you will lose your case. Okay. You may not even make it far with that case. You may not even make it to trial. Okay. If you don't understand this portion of it. So let's deal with it right here. How court works. All right. Let's deal with this. Steps in a trial, right? You have evidence. Okay. So the heart of the case is the presentation of evidence. Let me say that again. The heart of the case is the presentation of evidence. There are two types of evidence, direct and circumstantial. Let me say that again. There are two types of evidence, direct and circumstantial. And if you understand and pay attention to how I do my presentations, right? This is how I put my lessons together. I put them together as if I am stating a case, right? Bringing forth a case, just so that way I can, my goal is to answer whatever questions, the hard questions, and make sure that whatever information I share is properly vetted. So that way, when you read it or when you see the evidence, it's hard to deny. It's hard to deny the information that is presented. Okay. So studied law for a couple of years, had to do, a lot of late night studying at the law library. But nevertheless, but let's deal with this right here. Let's deal with this some more. Let's go further with this. All right. Direct evidence. And these two pieces of evidence are equally important. But the first portion we see, direct evidence, usually is that which speaks for itself. Let me say that again. Direct evidence usually is that which speaks for itself. Eyewitness accounts, a confession, or a weapon. All right, so direct evidence, eyewitness accounts, a confession, or a weapon. Then you have what is called circumstantial evidence. Usually is that which suggests a fact by implication or inference. The appearance of the scene of a crime, testimony that suggests a connection or link with a crime, physical evidence that suggests criminal activity. Both kinds of evidence are a part of most trials, with circumstantial evidence probably being used more often than direct. Either kind of evidence can be offered in oral testimony of witnesses or physical exhibits, including fingerprints, test results, and documents. Neither kind of evidence is more valuable than the other. In other words, what this is saying is both forms of evidence, the evidence that are presented, as I pointed out here, direct evidence and circumstantial evidence, they are equally important. As it says here at the bottom here, neither kind of evidence is more valuable than the other. Okay, so let's start with our presentation of the evidence. All right, y'all ready, jury? Y'all ready to start this off here? Okay, let's start this off here. Okay. All right, let's start it off here. Let's start with a key prophecy here. Let's start with this key prophecy. Revelation chapter 2, verse 14 and 15. All right. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. You know what's interesting, right? And my task that I have here is that I'm going to have to, my task is to prove to you, the jury, that Santa Claus, that this Christmas, that this whole so-called holiday, number one, is not biblical, that they have blood on their hands, that they have cursed, they have deceived an entire community. I have to prove that to you. I have to prove to you also, what does it mean when we see idols, as far as things sacrificed, eat things sacrificed to idols? See, I asked a question in somebody's live that they were doing. And matter of fact, I'll be specific. I don't have to talk around it. But Brother Marine had a guy by the name of Elder Mike on there. This happened about a month ago. And he was teaching that, hey, we could eat pork. We could eat everything from the Rudy to the Tootie, as long as we just pray over it. And they poorly teach out of context the dream, the vision that the Most High came to Peter with. And in that vision, in that dream, the Most High used animals, right, as a example of dealing with people, because Peter was prejudiced. Peter didn't want to deal with a particular demographics of people. So the Most High used animals in that dream to tell him, hey, whatever I present to you is holy. If I say to eat, then that means you're going to eat, because I'm not going to present to you anything that's going to be to your detriment. But many have taken that vision and completely took it out of context. And I asked a question based off of Acts chapter 15, because that's one of the things that in that letter, right, the instructions that the Council of Jerusalem, led by James, they said to Apostle Paul, Barnabas, and all of those guys, made it clear. They didn't say that these converts don't have to honor the law, statutes, and commandments, right? The whole discussion was dealing with circumcision. So what he said to them, right? For now, let's focus on making sure that they are not what? Committing fornication. You'll see that right there. Committing fornication and what? Eating things that are sacrificed unto idols. And I asked the question, can you explain that verse? And needless to say, they bypassed that question. All right. They bypassed that question. Okay. So, but let's deal with this. All right. Let's see who we got here. Second Exodus, what you doing here trying to come in into the stream? Let me bring them up in, bring this person up in here. I told you it was for my sister Shalonda, but let's see. Let me bring them up in here real quick. Second Exodus, you on? All right. I guess he's not there. All right. All right. All right. Let me see here. Looks like he tried it again. Let me see it. Let me bring him in real quick. Second Exodus, you there? All right. All right. Second Exodus, I give you the opportunity, so I'm going to have to kick you from the studio. All right. All right. But nevertheless, can you guys hear me? If you guys can hear me, type in 1. If you can't, type in 2. Hopefully you guys can hear me clearly. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get this continue here. All right. So this is the key. I can guarantee you, all right, that Elder Mike, right, Brother Berean, and not just those guys, most people within the church, right, they will not explain this text right here. And I'm going to show you that Christmas is all about paying homage to idol worshiping. Everything that the instructions that the council per se of Jerusalem gave, not fornicating and eating foods that are sacrificed to idols, that this is the very thing that this holiday is celebrating. That's right. Santa is guilty. Don't even have to go too far with that. So I'm going to prove this to you. All right. But this is a sample. This is not the whole case, guys. I'm just giving you a sample. Verse 15. So hast thou also them that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaites. Let me read that again. So has thou also them that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaites, which thing I hate. Right. So again, we're going to focus on where it says, cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel to eat things sacrificed unto idols. So let's start with Exhibit A. Right. Let's start with cookies for Santa Claus. Right. Because, you know, they'll tell you that, hey, this is not in the scriptures. This is not in the Bible, you know, and I did this challenge last year. I did this challenge 2 years in a row. I offered, and everyone would tell you, I offered $5,000 to any ministry if they can prove to me with scripture that Christmas is valid. And I had no takers for 2 years in a row. Not a single pastor chose to take me up on that offer. I said, I will put that into their ministry. And they did not accept my offer. So let's deal with cookies sacrificed to Santa. Let's deal with cookies for Santa. Cookies for Santa, which is part of the sacrifices to idols. Let's deal with this. History.com. This is what it says here. According to one theory, the cookies and milk custom is derived from an older tradition when families would stuff stockings with goodies for Santa and hang them by the chimney, his preferred mode of interest as a welcoming gift. Let me read that again. According to one theory, the cookies and milk custom is derived from an older tradition when families would stuff stockings and goodies for Santa and hang them by the chimney, his preferred mode of interest as a welcoming gift. It goes on to say, leaving cookies and milk for Santa and perhaps a few carrots for his reindeer took off as an American holiday tradition in the 1930s during the Great Depression. The original root of this holiday food tradition go back even further, all the way to ancient Norse mythology. That's the Vikings, right? We see how this North mythology, the religion of the Vikings, has a lasting imprint, right, on the things that are within our society, the days of the week, right? Matter of fact, this language, English, right? Old English, right? We could really deal with that. And I dealt with that in the lesson that I did called the the deception of the English language. And I really highlight the Norse influence on the church, right? But anyway, not trying to get sidetracked here. So the origins for this holiday food tradition go back even further, all the way to ancient Norse mythology. Odin, the most important Norse god, was said to have an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir, which he rode with a raven perched on each shoulder. Next time we get together, I'm going to have some animations here to give you the image, all right? So where did this originate? Now, they say the Norse religion. But guess what? I'm going to show you scriptures here that this go beyond the Norse religion. Right? Let me show you here. Where did this originate? Let me show you here. Are there similar practices in scripture? Absolutely. Right? Let me show you here. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 18. And let's see what it says. The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough to make what? Cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. Let me read that again. Let me read it one more time. For those that think that these systems, these rituals, these things, that all these different little things that we see that comes with the territory with Christmas, think that this is just happenstance. No, these things are in the scripture. There is nothing new under the sun per se. So making cookies for Santa, we see here in the scriptures, is what? Making cakes to the Queen of Heaven. And not only just giving the cookies or the cakes, they also give what? A drink offering. So to pour out drink offerings unto what? Other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. So here we have it here, the cake to the Queen of Heaven and drink offering to other gods. This is the origin of milk and cookies for Santa. Okay, man, we're going to tear this up. Let me give you another verse here. Jeremiah 44, verse 19. This is what it says. And when we burned incense, you guys better stop all that sages, burning sages. Know what that stuff is for. But it says, but when we burnt incense to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drink offerings unto her, did we make her cakes to worship her and pour out drink offerings unto her without our men? See, when Jeremiah was speaking to the people, the women got really bold here. They were really being rude with Jeremiah. Aren't we seeing that today from the so-called people that are defending the text when you tell them that you don't celebrate Christmas and you give them the truth about it, and they tell you that you are in a cult when actually they are in a cult. They are practicing occultic behavior. When we burn incense, this is what it says, and when we burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drink offerings unto her, did we make her cakes to worship her and pour out drink offerings unto her without our men? So basically, they telling the prophet here, like, hey, guess what? Our men didn't have a problem. Guess what? We do what we want to do. We did this without our men. We don't need our men to get permission to provide cakes, cookies for the Queen of Heaven and give her drink offerings. We don't need any permission. We do that on our own. So Israel again started worshiping false gods, especially the false god Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess of love and fertility. Throughout the city, entire families supported this. Children gathered wood while their fathers lit the fire, and the women kneaded the dough to make bread offerings to this goddess called the Queen of Heaven. All right. But we'll go further with that when we do the actual trial. But let me give you another exhibit, right? Let me touch on exhibit B. Y'all see that in the background, that oink oink in the background. Let's deal with exhibit B. Since many people, especially when we start dealing with these guys from the church, these elder mics and all these guys that's making up stuff as they go, because most of these guys, they don't have scripture, right? A proper scripture or the proper articulation of the text. So they start making up stuff, right? They start making up stuff. Literally, these guys make up stuff on the fly. Make up stuff that's not even biblical. But let me show you what the oink oink is, right? Let me show you what the food sacrifice to idols is. Exhibit B, right? Food for their gods, sacrifice to idols. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 66, verse 17 first. Let's see what it says. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine, flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith Yahweh. So guess what? They were trying to sneak. These Israelites was trying to hide themselves eating swine, eating the oink oink, eating pork. And guess what? Understand this too. Rodents were part of that diet too. That's why when you see horror movies, now they won't show the people eating mice, but if you notice, you're going to always see what? The pig, you want to see rodents, and you want to see dogs. Those are the three things that you're going to see that is key to all these different horror movies that are out there. But guess what? You have this pig, you have this oink oink, right? That they were trying to hide. Right? So food of their gods, no pork on the fork. Let me give you some more clarity on this. No pork on the fork. Don't dine with the swine. The boar's head served at dinner at the season is Babylonian. Let me say that again. The boar's head served at dinner at that season is Babylonian. Right? The boar was sacrificed to Adonis or Tammuz, the sun god, and its head served up at his festival because Adonis, in other words, the same, be it remembered as Nimrod, was said to have been killed by the tusk of a boar. The goddess Diana, this is now, if you guys do not understand who the goddess Diana, that's the goddess of Diana of Themyscira. That is Wonder Woman, right? That's the image that we see today of Wonder Woman. The goddess Diana, though commonly regarded as only as the huntress Diana, was in reality identical to Cybele and Rhea, and in her attributes under the form of the Ephesian Diana was worshipped as the mother goddess. Now this deity was no other than Semiramis, though there is a confusion in the Babylonian mythology between Semiramis and Eve, each being in a sense regarded as the mother of the child. And Diana, accordingly, is frequently represented with the boar's head as her accompaniment. All right. So let's go to Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. This is key right here. Let me give you guys a little clarity on this text right here. Daniel, it says, but Daniel, right? Danai al purposed in his heart, Labah, that he would not defile Gaal himself with the portion of the king's Malak meat. Right? Pathbag or Pathabag, however you want to pronounce it. So it goes on to say, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Let me read that again. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So what Daniel was doing here, he asked and got permission that they did not have to eat the king's meat. The king's meat was pork. It was swine. That's what they also sacrificed to their gods. And so Daniel, when you see here, they went on a fast, right? They're asking they go on a fast so that way they did not have to defile themselves. So when you see food sacrificed to idols, that is pork, that is swine. Those foods are sacrificed to idols. And this is what the apostles told the people not to do. But this is all through scriptures. This is all through scriptures. I just highlighted Isaiah. This is all through scriptures. We are not supposed to be eating any unclean foods. All right. So this right here would knock down anyone who tried to say, hey, long as we pray over the food, we're good. No, that's not correct. Right. We always talk about doing what Christ does, but it's all talk when you start dealing with the church. It's all talk. Because if they really wanted to do what Christ did, they'll be honoring the Shabbat, the proper Shabbat, the seventh day Shabbat. They'll be honoring the feast days. They'll be honoring the day, the feast of dedication versus having church anniversaries. They will have all these different things in place, but they don't. They don't. They have conferences, right? They have holy convocations. And in Hebrew, the holy convocation is the feast days. Maquarah, right? That's Quadash Maquarah, holy convocation. But they can have all these convocations. And man, when I was in Kojic, going out to Memphis and man, anyway, I'm not going to get into all of that. But you see here, Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with portions of the king's meat. He did not want to eat swine. So let's get back here. Let's get back to Revelation chapter 2. Also them that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. Let me read that again. Also them that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. So what are their doctrine? What's their doctrine? What's the doctrine of the Nicolaites? What is their doctrine? All right. The Greek definition of the Nicolaitans. Let's see what it says. It says, adherent of Nicholas. Wait a minute. Y'all see what this? Y'all paying attention to this? Y'all paying attention to this? See, I could peel the banana off this whole worship of Nicholas, starting with Saint Nicholas. Pope Nicholas, who signed the edict to enslave our people that our people are worshiping. Also, we see what? The Nicolaites, an example, adherent of Nicholas. We're not going to deal with it all tonight, but we're going to really peel this banana next week when we get into depth about the Nicolaites, right? But their name means destruction of people. That term Nicolaites means the destruction of the Most High's people. That's their doctrine. And so when you understand Saint Nicholas, right? St. Nicholas, Pope Nicholas, what did he do? He put into place doctrines. He put into place edicts to destroy our people, which is Yah's people. This is in the scriptures. When I taught this lesson for the first time about 7 years ago, the ministry mouth, every last one of their mouths dropped. When I said, I can show you St. Nicholas in the scriptures. St. Nicholas is a destructive doctrine. It is a destructive belief system. And I'm going to show you that. So that name Nicolaitan means the destruction of people. So when we start dealing with Pope Nicholas V, he signed the edict to enslave millions and millions and millions of our ancestors, to rape, to murder, to kidnap. That's where you get the term rapture from, because rapture really means to kidnap, to rape. So our people was raptured, right? We're left behind. If you want to be truthful about it, we are left behind. We are the prisoners. We are the descendants of the people that was raptured. And just think, in Kojic, we used to do a thing called rapture practice. Somebody would scream out rapture practice and everyone would jump to the feet and scream out, hallelujah. Can you imagine how Hasatan is looking at us like they just don't have a clue? They don't even understand the depth of what they're saying. So the Nicolaitan means the destruction of people. And this is proven. Why? Because Pope Nicholas V, Pope Nicholas, he's a saint now. So his name would be Saint Nicholas. He signed the edict to enslave our people, to destroy our people. And he is spoken of here right in Revelation chapter 2. I just showed you. I just proved to you that this destructive doctrine of Saint Nicholas is right here in the scriptures. And we see the results, the works of Saint Nicholas, starting with 1442. That's why I'll tell you, absolutely not a single pastor would take me on the offer of what? When I said I'll put $5,000 into their ministry, because I know that they could not get past this verse right here. Not a single pastor can explain this verse that I just presented to you guys. All right. And we are the results of what? The doctrines of to destroy people, because our people, they purposely what? Set out to destroy us, to remove our reputation. And what that's the Hebrew word sham, and the Israeli language is pronounced shem, but to what? Completely take away our reputation. We are the hidden ones. All right. But it goes on to say here, and it says a sect mentioned in Revelation 2 and 6, who were charged with holding the error of Balaam, casting a stumbling block before the church of God. Now we know that's not even a good term to use, but just for the sake of the presentation, actually it is what? The assembly of the witnesses, Yashara'al. Right? That's the true term of it. The assembly of witnesses of the Israelites. Right? And of course, those that far as the strangers too that decided to follow. But this is primarily right here. This is dealing with the Israelites. So we can't get around it. This is not dealing with Gentiles. This is dealing with the actual children of Israel. So we can't get around it. So this is not a generic term, right? This is dealing with what happened with Balaam, right? And when you read Numbers chapter 22 through 25, this is not dealing with the church. This is dealing with Israel. You see how you could just pick apart a lot of the doctrines that they teach? But it says here before the church, right? Or actually, I'm going to say before the Israelites, by upholding the liberty of eating things sacrificed to idols, as well as committing fornication. Guess what? Aren't they poisoning our people with this destructive doctrine? Number one, teaching that we don't have to honor the Shabbat. We don't have to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. Now are saying that we can eat anything from the Rudy to the Tootie. That's, if I remember correctly, that's Boomerang, right? Gerard's father, right? So think about this. That's Revelation. That's why you see it's mentioned three times, at least three times in the book of Revelation, about the Hebrew Israelite Messiah eyes being red as if they were fire, as if they were flames of fire. Why? Because he is what? It's describing the intensity of what he see of what became of his people. You see it in Revelation chapter 1. You see it in Revelation chapter 2. And I believe Revelation chapter 18. You'll see it again. You see it three times describing his eyes of what progressed here. All right. Right. So this is so easy. Like I said, this is so easy. This trial is so easy. This is so easy to prove. Yep. They use Christian liberty to support their doctrine. Absolutely. Miss V Mac, let's see here. Pastor Kelly, you done set their tree presents and food. Old Santa Claus and the reindeer set it on fire. Guess what? We didn't even get to the tree yet. When we get to the tree, guess what? Before you know it, the tree gonna be inside. We're gonna put it in the grinder. All right, but we may not be able to get to that tonight. But we definitely next week, next we're gonna do a next Saturday night. We're gonna start our trial of Christmas. And if there's anyone from the church that want to hold your argument, bring your argument to the table, you're more than welcome. But I can guarantee you, you're not going to win this argument. I have too much information just with the scriptures to prove that Christmas is not something that anyone should be upholding, regardless of what labels you try to put on it. All right, but let's deal with it some more. The destructive doctrines of the Nicolaitans. Who being held accountable in this writing? Who's being held? The angel of each what? Assembly. I know it's church here. I got to update my presentation because it's an old presentation. But the angels of each assembly, right? Because church, they were not called a church back at that time, right? Because that word church, guess what? It's that's right. I did correct it. I'm going to explain it here. I don't want to get ahead of myself. The angels of each Israelite assembly, right? Let me say that again. The angels of each Israelite assembly is who the Most High is addressing. Let's go to Revelation chapter 2, verse 1. It says, unto the angel of the church of Ephesus, right? And actually the assembly of Ephesus, these things said he that holdeth the seven stars in his right hand, who walketh in the midst of the seven golden candlesticks. All right. So the angel of the assemblies, right? Word of a confusion, church. Let's knock this down. We're going to tear up Santa Claus here. We're going to tear up Christmas, and we're going to deal with some other deceptive words that have kept our people enslaved. So the word church is a transliteration of a transliteration. Let me explain. The Greek definition of ecclesia. Let's start with this. Ecclesia. Let's see what it says, right? Or some would say ecclesia, however you want to pronounce it. A calling out, right? Religious congregation, assembly. But let me show you what the in-depth definition says about what the assembly really is. Notice what it says. In sub-entry, well, actually entry number 1, it says a gathering of citizens called out from their homes into some public place, an assembly. But look at this sub-entry B. It says the assembly of the Israelites, right? When you put this into proper context, the Hebrew Israelite Messiah, when he said, on this rock, I will build my church. No, he didn't say that. He said, on this rock, I'm going to build up what? My called out people, my assembly of Israelites. But unfortunately, many will use Paul as if Paul gave the instructions of saying that, hey, Israel's identity is now generalized. That's not what Paul taught. Paul did not teach that all of a sudden, guess what? The Israelite heritage is no longer important because we're all just, hey, we are Israelites now. That's not what it actually means. That's not what Paul was actually teaching, rather. Because if you understand all through, right, all through the scriptures, right, before there was a writings of the New Testament per se, the testimonies of the disciples, guess what they were teaching out of? If you read Acts chapter 13, you'll see that Paul was teaching out of what? The law and the prophets, the very books that the Hebrew Israelite Messiah was teaching out of. You see that in, I believe, Matthew chapter 22, either 22 or Matthew 24. You'll see that echoed all through the Gospels, the law and the prophets. That's what they were teaching from. And then to confirm Christ, they used the law and the prophets and the testimonies of the disciples. That's all in Acts chapter in Acts, the book of Acts. So Apostle Paul in chapter 13 was teaching out of the law and the prophets. So when you go to the law and the prophets and you go to the book of Exodus chapter 12, right, you'll see in, I believe, verse 5 or verse 6, you'll see the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel. That's the proper writing. The proper understanding of that phrase when it says, on this rock I will build my church. No, on this rock I will build up my called out assembly of witnesses, the Israelites. So when you understand from Abraham taught what? One covenant. He was given one covenant, right? The covenant covered his entire household. The covenant was what for? Between Abraham and his seed, right? Isaac, right? But we know that everyone within his household was circumcised, whether they were blood descendants or not. We go to Exodus chapter 12, one law for the homeborn and for the strangers. That's all through the scriptures. But it was still what? Israel that the focus was on. Anyway, let me stop with that. Let me not get ahead of myself. All right. So ecclesia means called out congregation. Within the context of the Holy Scriptures, the called out assembly of witnesses, Israel. That's the proper context when you say this, right? When you say ecclesia, it's really the called out. In other words, the assembly of witnesses of Israel, the assembly, Qahal, of witnesses, Idaf, of Israel, Yashara'al. So the whole call, right? Assembly, Qahal, of witnesses, Idaf, Yashara'al. Here's the scripture right here, Exodus chapter 12, verse 6. All right, it says this, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, the whole assembly. That's what I just pointed out. Qahal of the congregation of Israel, Idaf Yashara'al, shall kill Shakat it in the evening, Arab. So what they're referring to is the Passover. That's what this is referring to. But for the first time in scripture, we see that an entire nation is referred to as witnesses, Idaf. All right. But let's deal with this word church real quick. All right. This is coming from, I didn't put the reference name up here, but this, I got to clean this presentation up and I'll have it ready for next week. But this is, I can't think of the name of it. I'll have the name up on next time we get together. All right. Oh, I can't think of the name of it now. I got to update this presentation. But church, listen to what it says. All right. It says the etymology of this word is generally assumed to be from the Greek kurio oikos, in other words, house of God, right? But this is most improbable, as the word existed in the Celtic dialects long before the introduction of Greek. No doubt the word means a circle. So wait a minute. So the term church means a circle? Guess why? Here's the reason why. The places of worship among the Germans and Celtic nations were always what? Circular. Witness the complex of Stonehenge, Avonbury, Silbury Hill, Stanton Drew, and etc. The dolmen of Brittany. So these given some examples, the relic shrines of India. But notice it says the complex of Stonehenge. So the places of worship among the Germans and Celtics. So this is telling you that the original church was not even a Greek word. The term church was not even used for Christianity and Catholicism until the middle of the 3rd century, 4th century. That's a fact. All right. Right. That's a fact. Okay. Let's deal with this some more. So what is Christmas? All right. What is Christmas? What is Christmas? For its first 3 centuries, the church did not have a birthday for the Messiah. Let me say that again, so that they would this could sink in. For the first 3 centuries, the church did not have a birthday for the Hebrew Israelite Messiah. Let me say it one more time. For the first 3 centuries, right, the church did not have a birthday for the Messiah.
What?
All right. Did not have a birthday. Okay. Let's see here. I tried to get my animation to work. My apologies, guys. I think I got kicked out here. I think that this system does not like me speaking against Santa Claus. If you guys can hear me, click 1. Type 1 inside the chat. All right. If you can hear me now, type 1. All right. All right. For some reason, everything just froze up. I got kicked out of here. My apologies. All right. Because I was trying to give a 3-piece to this doctrine. Let me see if the 3-piece even works. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah. So they didn't want me to toss out the trash like this. Yeah, they didn't want me to do that. They were trying to hate on the 3-piece, guys. My apologies. So again, for the first 3 centuries, the church did not have a birthday for the Messiah. The church did not have a birthday for the Hebrew Israelite Messiah. All right. That's a fact. No matter how much they try to convince you that it did, the church did not have a birthday for Christ or the Hebrew Israelite Messiah. That's what I like to use just to remind everyone from within Christianity, from within the church, that try to teach that, badly against the term Hebrew Israelite, try to demonize that term, when in fact, the Messiah, Hebrew Israelite. Okay. So even that, let's toss that doctrine out. Let's toss it out. All right. And let's give them a 3-piece. All right. So let's get back into it. All right. Let's deal with this just a little bit more. So let's go to Exhibit C. Right now, in order to really debunk Christmas, we have to deal with Easter. We have to deal with Easter, and I'm going to go into some details here, and then we'll save the rest for when we go on trial next week. All right. So let's deal with this, and we'll deal with Santa Claus. We'll go deeper into that, but I just don't want to give too much out tonight. But I want to give enough so that way you know what to expect for next week when we come together, because Santa Claus is getting ready. He's going to be locked up. Christmas is going to be locked up. And so that way you can share with those that your loved ones that may be inside the church. You can have them tune into this as well. All right. So let's deal with Easter. And we'll tie this in with Christmas. You'll see how this ties in. All right. Let's start with the spring equinox. What is the spring equinox? Let's see the definition of it here. It says, either of the two times a year, or each year rather, as about March 21st and September 23rd, when the sun crosses the equator, and day and night are everywhere on Earth of approximately equal lengths. Okay, so it's twice a year, right? You see it in March 21st, right? And also September 23rd. And I did a lesson, and we'll do that again, when I literally, with scripture and historical information, was able to pinpoint the very first Passover, create the very first calendar. All right. But nevertheless, and there I proved that we don't need to have all these these electrical gadgets and everything to determine the times of the year, the days of the week. We have a calendar, that we have natural signs that we can go off of. But anyway, so let's deal with the equinox some more. So either of the two times each year, about March 21st and September 23rd, when the sun crosses the equator, and day and night are everywhere on Earth of approximately equal lengths. All right. So Easter is a movable feast that occurs on the Sunday after the vernal equinox. Let's deal with this here. So the Roman Catholics established the traditional Easter Sunday as the festival that commemorates the resurrection of Christ on the third day. All right. And that's that. Guys, we can pick apart their arguments and everything that you have within many of the theologians. They'll refer to the didact of saying, hey, this doctrine says, the Lord's Day, but it doesn't say the first day of the week. That's a fact. They'll start bringing up Polycarp, and they'll bring up Barnabas. They'll bring up, Ignatius and all these other people when, for example, it's so easy to debunk those letters. Those letters is not from the first century. Those are second century writings at the earliest. And it can be proven with ease. But either way, what should cause us to question or raise questions, you have the Hebrew Israelite Messiah honored the Shabbat in the feast days. His disciples honored the Shabbat and feast days, and it's in scripture. But then you're saying the disciples of the disciples did not honor. Doesn't make sense. And then when you read the writings of Barnabas, right, you'll see that he had so much hatred against the Israelites. He wrote inside his letter, per se, his epistle, saying that do not pray or fast with the Israelites. And that is not scripture. That is not even biblical. Anyway, it's so easy to pick apart all these so-called primary sources. Is that what they call it? You want to tell me that the teacher honored, but the students didn't honor it. The teachers honored it. The Messiah honored it, but the third generation didn't honor it. But in the scriptures, we see the Gentiles were honoring the Shabbat. That's still going back to Acts chapter 13. We see that Apostle Paul taught the assembly of Corinth to honor the feast, the Passover. Paul said Christ is our Passover lamb. Let us keep the feast. Right? Anyway, not trying to get into a preachy moment, but let's deal with this some more. The etymology of the word Easter. It says, the name of a goddess. And notice these words here. You see Old English, Easter dag, right? You see these terms here. Northumbrian, Eastre, from the Proto-Germanic, right? And this is still Proto-Germanic, ultimately comes from the Proto-Indo-European language, which you can also consider it the language of Japheth. All right. So it says here, the name of a goddess of fertility and spring. So we're dealing with what? Phallic worship, fertility and spring. So when you think about the Easter, right? Easter it represents you planting seeds, right? You planting seeds. All right. And we're going to delve into this some more. So it says the name of a goddess of fertility and spring, perhaps originally of sunrise, whose feast was celebrated at the spring equinox. All right. Bedi rather says Anglo and Saxon Christians adopted her name in many of these celebratory practices for their mass of Christ's resurrection. Almost all neighboring languages use a variant of Latin Pascha to name this holiday. All right. So Easter egg attested by 1825. I'm not getting into all of that. So we see here, it says Anglo-Saxon Christians adopted her name in many of the celebratory practices for their mass of Christ's resurrection. Okay. So the origins of the word Easter. Easter was transliterated from the Greek word Pascha, which means Passover. Easter actually derives from the goddess Iastre. She is identified with the Babylonian fertility goddess Ishtar. Notice how we're right back into what? The destructive doctrines of the Nicolaites, right? We're right back in Revelation chapter 2. Okay. Here's some rituals honoring Ishtar. So in Babylon, like many other ancient pagan cultures, human sexuality was associated with fertility and nature. Temples were erected in Ishtar's honor, and sexual ritualism was associated with the worship of her. Some scholars attest that each year around the time of the spring equinox is the marriage of Ishtar and Tammuz reenacted. This ceremony consisted of a sexual ritual between the kings of Babylon and the high priestess of Babylon. It was believed that this union would ensure plentiful crops. So you're still dealing with what? Phallic worship. All right. So this sacred prostitution was the practice of Ishtar, which practiced in honor of Ishtar. All right. So there were also homosexual male prostitutes known as Asenu, all right, Karguru, and Kulu'u. These devotees of Ishtar were castrated and engaged in lifelong service of men in honor of Ishtar. And when you start understanding the Aphrodite temple, you had cross-dressing men inside the temple. They were cross-dressers. This is where you get the term transvestites, right? But anyway, that's still dealing with what? Going all the way back to what? The destructive doctrines of the Nicolaites. All right. So let's deal with this some more. Let's delve into this some more. And we'll deal with this portion some more when we deal with Valentine's Day. All right. So we got a few months to deal with that until we deal with that. So they were also called eunuchs. All right. Let's go to Isaiah 56, verse 3 and 4. Right. Let's see what it says about the eunuchs. Right. This right here is one of the scriptures. I remember when we were on Sister E's channel a couple of months ago, and I brought this scripture up to Elder Mike. And Elder Mike began to make up stuff, saying that this scripture, I don't know how he explained it. It was just way out of left field. It wasn't biblical at all. But nevertheless, it says here, neither let the son of the stranger that have joined himself to Yahweh speak, saying, Yahweh hath utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. Right? But look at here. It says, for thus saith Yahweh unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths or Shabbats, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my what? My covenant. Right? Let's go further here. Let's deal with the worship of the Easter egg. I just thought I'd share that little bit about the eunuch. So in order to, serve the Most High, you have to give up these rituals. You have to give up these rituals. You have to let this stuff go. Right? We have to let this stuff go, guys. So in addition to the name Easter, the symbols associated with Easter festival also revealed its pagan influence. In paganism, the mundane egg is symbolic of the manifestation of the cosmos. The egg is also a symbol of rebirth that is associated with various pagan deities. All right, starting with what? The Egyptian god Seb laid an egg, right? The ancient Egyptians hung eggs in their temples. Seb, the Egyptian god of time, supposedly laid an egg. In the ancient Greek Orphic tradition, the primordial hermaphroditic or hermaphroditic deity, or excuse me, hermaphroditic god rather, hatched from an egg and then created the deity. You see this? You see the egg in the Egyptians. You see it. You see the egg among the Greeks, right? We see the egg among the Chinese. Listen to this: Chinese myth, Pu Ku Wang. Excuse the typos here, but Pu Ku Wang, birth from an egg. It says here the Chinese myth has it that in the beginning all was darkness and confusion, but out of a vast egg came a being called Pun Ku Wang. The lower half of the shell of the egg became the earth, and the upper half the heavens. Right? Anyway, I'm not going to even go into further elaboration on that. I can, but I'm not. So, according to Babylonian legend, let's see what this says. Right? This is dealing with the Babylons. An egg containing Ishtar fell from heaven and landed in the Euphrates River. This cosmic egg of an incredible size was pushed to shore by a fish, and incubated by a dove. Babylon is the roots of Easter egg hunts. Unbelievable, right? So colored eggs were also used in honor of Ishtar. And ancient pagans believed that finding Ishtar eggs in nature at the time of her rebirth would bring forth a blessing. In ancient Anglo-Saxon mythology, the fertility goddess Ostara changed her bird into an egg-laying rabbit. Now you see, when you see during the Easter time, you see the bunny laying eggs, right? That's still the worship of Ishtar, fertility. All right. So these brightly colored eggs were given to, these brightly colored eggs were given as gifts to children. All right. Part of this sacred prostitution. All part of this here. So after the rise of Roman Catholicism, the egg became a symbol of the tomb from which Christ was resurrected. And Christians continued to promote the deceptive pagan custom of painting eggs during the festival of Easter. Okay, let's deal with this some more. Peter Cottontail. Let's deal with the Easter Bunny real quick. So in paganism, the rabbit is a sign of sexual fertility. Ancient pagans believed that finding Ishtar's egg in nature at the time of her rebirth would bring forth blessings. In ancient Anglo and Saxon mythology, the fertility god Ostara changed her bird into an egg-laying rabbit. So a rabbit can have up to 4 litters each year. During its lifespan, a rabbit can potentially produce up to 600 offsprings. It was believed that rabbits had sex indiscriminately and were thus associated with the fertility goddess, in whose honor sexually wanton acts were committed. So rabbits were mainly associated with Ostara and Aphrodite. They were sacrificed on the altars, and even the consumption of rabbit meat was believed to cure infertility well into the 17th century. Let me read this portion again. They were sacrificed on altars. So rabbit is still part of the rodent family, and many people eat rabbit. These are also foods that are sacrificed to idols. All right. Let's deal with this some more. So the rabbit, like Easter, is associated with the moon. So again, rabbits carries her young for a month, and lining up with the length of the moon cycle. A new moon was considered masculine, and the vanishing moon feminine. Aristotle believed that the rabbit was male one year and female the next year. Let me say that again. Aristotle actually believed that the rabbit was a male one year and female the next year. So the Roman Catholics is not the only influence on the church, or should I say on the people of the Most High, in the usage of the egg. Guess what? We can see this in the Talmud. Let me show you something here. I'm going to show you in the Talmud that they worship the egg as well. All right. Drinking a little tea here. All right. So in Sanhedrin 101a, it says this: our rabbis taught it is permitted to consult by a charm. Wait a minute. You see what they're doing here? Consult by a charm. Witchcraft. It is permitted to consult by a charm the spirit of oil or eggs, but that they give false answers. Incantations are made over oil contained in a vessel, but not in the hand. Therefore, one may anoint with the latter, but not with the former. You see this here? There, even in Judaism, in the Talmud, it promotes consulting charms and using what? Eggs. Okay. Let's see the footnotes here. This is the footnotes. Did I do it? Oh man, let me fix this here. Bear with me 1 second. Let me fix this real quick. All right. Let me fix this real quick, so that way you guys can see it correctly. And I'll bring it back up. All right, here we go. You guys know I'd like to make sure my presentation is in a good place. So, all right, let me try this again. Let's see if it's up. All right. It did it again. All right. Let me close it out real quick. All right, let me stop the share. All right, I'm gonna reshare this here so you guys can see the presentation. All right, let me see here. Take this out. That's multiple. Float in. All right, here we go. Let's try this again. Gonna have to blame somebody tonight for everything being out of whack tonight. Who can we blame? All right, let's try this again. Okay, let me share this again so you guys can see this. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, you guys can see this. Here we go. So here's the footnotes. All right. Every plant in the vegetable kingdom was believed to have its own presiding genius, which could be provoked by incantations. All right. And we see here, it goes on to say both eggs and oil were used for purposes of magic and in folk medicine. You see here, still dealing with what? Witchcraft. And it goes on to say in 18, the footnote 18, it says, matter of fact, let's just read the top of it. It says, it is noteworthy from the present passage that the Talmud had no faith in these charms. That's incorrect. Verse 18, this states the practice is, it says, this states the practice, not a ruling. All right, this is showing that it's practice. All right, that's all it's saying. So what does March 31st, the spring equinox, represent? Let's sum this up here, because I said all of this for a reason, right? The planting of seeds into fertile ground. So make a note of that. All right. So now let's deal with December 25th, the celebration of Christmas. So remember, the spring equinox represents the planting of the seed. Now, remember that. Make a note of that. All right. The spring equinox, right? It is the planting of the seed, March 21st, the planting of the seed. So write that down. So let's deal with the next portion of this. We're going to deal with the solstice. All right. And then we're going to wrap it up. So the celebration of Christmas, December 25th, during the 4th century, there was much argument about adoption of a date. Let me say that again. During the 4th century, there was much argument about adoption of a date, right? I'm telling you guys, Christmas was not always celebrated. It was like a 3rd or 4th century, depending on what dates, but we could say between the 3rd and the 4th century, is when it began to be practiced. So we could really say the 4th century. All right. So during the 4th century, there was much argument about adoption of a date. Some favored the popular date, the Korean, which when the Divine Virgin gave birth to the new Aeon in Alexandria, now called the 12th night or Epiphany. This date is still the official nativity in the Armenian churches. All right, the 12th night or Epiphany. All right, we're gonna deal with this some more. All right, let's deal with the winter solstice. So again, I just proved to you that Christmas was not a birthday for Christ was not celebrated until between the 3rd and 4th century. All right. All right. So just want to make that clear. So what is the solstice? What is the winter solstice? The Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of the winter solstice says this: either of the 2 points on the ecliptic at which its distance from the celestial equator is greatest and which is reached by the sun each year about June 21st and December 21st. So Roman churchmen favored the Mithraic winter solstice festival called Dies Natalis, in other words, the Solus Invictus. All right, let's break this down. What is called the birthday of the unconquered sun? That's what it's called. The birthday of what? The unconquered sun, which was blended with the Greek sun festival of the Helia by the emperor Aurelian. December 25th also honored gods such as Attis, Dionysus, Osiris, Syrian Baal, and other versions of the solar sun of Ma, who bore such titles as Light of the World, Son of Righteousness, and Savior. So most pagan mysteries celebrated the birth of the so-called divine child at Solus Invictus. So Norsemen celebrated the birthday of their Lord Frey, at the nadir of the sun in the darkest winter, known to them as Yule. Okay. And notice in the background, that is Stonehenge. That is actually, if you want to be real about it, that's the first church. Why? Because remember, that word church was not being used by Christianity and Catholicism until 330 AD. But that word is a Celtic word. That's their word. So guess what? The original church is actually their place of worship. Okay, so let's deal with this some more. All right, so December 25th, the winter solstice represents 9 months later, it represents the birth. Let me say that again. So the spring equinox represents the planting of the seed, putting that seed into the ground. 9 months later, right? Now you see the solstice, the winter solstice represents the birth. You see how Easter, right, ties into Christmas, right? Again, the equinox, fertility, planting the seed. 9 months later, the solstice, the birth of that seed. Okay. So it's no coincidence that this December 25th was selected as the birth. Okay. So 9 months later represents the birth of a pagan Messiah. All right. The birth of the pagan Messiah. All right. Do I need to show you guys another exhibit before we wrap up? Do I need to, jury, you guys are trying out for the jury. Do I need to show you guys exhibit C? And we only dealt with 2 exhibits so far. And we've been here, almost an hour and a half. Second Exodus said guilty. All right. All right. All right. Ashley Just Souls said, hey, proceed. Okay, I'm going to proceed. I'm going to give you one more exhibit because you see how detailed here. So far, we identified a lot. So let's deal with this some more. Let's deal with exhibit C. The Christmas tree. The phallic worship of the Christmas tree. We'll do some of this because this is very detailed. We'll start off with a little bit of this, and then we'll go to the fullness of this next week. The Christmas tree, now so common among us, was equally common in Rome and Egypt. In Egypt, that tree was the palm tree. Let me say that again. In Egypt, that tree was the palm tree. Let me say that one more time, right? Because see, this right here can be very sensitive to some people, right? Many people rather. All right. Let me say that again. Right? The Christmas tree, now so common among us, was equally common in Rome and Egypt. In Egypt, that tree was the palm tree. In Rome, it was the fir. The palm tree denoting the pagan Messiah as Baal Tamar. The fir referring to him as Baal Berith. Now, if you understand that when you understand Baal Berith, basically what that means is covenant, the Lord of the covenant, right? That's what Berith is, Lord of the covenant. Let's deal with this some more. So who is Baal Tamar? All right, let's deal with it. Who is Baal Berith? I gave you the answer. These gods are directly connected to the worship of the palm tree. The palm tree in Babylonian myth of the primal garden, the palm tree was the tree of life, a dwelling place of the goddess Astarte. The Hebrew version of her name was Tamar, in other words, palm tree. Her male counterpart was Baal Peor, or Phoenix, or the god of Phoenicia, whose name meant land of the palm. As a phallic deity, notice what I just said here. Phallic deity, we're dealing with phallic worship. Baal Peor was symbolized by a palm tree between two large stones. Sexual orgies in the temple celebrated his union with the goddess in Phoenicia. And in Israel, until priests of Yahweh killed the celebrants in the midst of their rites. And you see that represented in Numbers chapter 25, verse 8, right? Under the plan of Baal, who him and the king of Moab came up with a plan to get the children of Israel, the men more particular, who they really targeted, to go against the things of the Most High. And for the Most High to do what? Curse them. In a nutshell, the Most High did curse them. Over 25,000 men died from what? An incurable venereal disease. Because it says a plague, right? Came upon them. A pestilent, rather. When you see a pestilent, what that means is that they had a disease that was not curable. Okay, so let's deal with this some more. Let's deal with this some more. All right, so the god Baal Berith is in the Holy Scriptures. Let's see, Judges chapter 8, verse 33 and 34. We'll see this here. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again and went a whoring after Baalim and made Baal Berith their god. Baal Berith. Remember what I said. Berith, or in the ancient, it's pronounced Barayath, but if you want to say Berith, right, that means covenant, right? Baal, Babylonian for Lord. So it's what? Lord of the covenant, their God, right? And went a whoring after Baalim. All through the book of Judges, you see this happening. Israel, following other gods and goddesses, going against the Most High. So it made Baal Berith their God. And the children of Israel remembered not Yahweh, their Elohim, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side. All right. So you see, it's so many layers to this. It's so many layers to this. We're going to deal with a little bit more. Let me just deal with Baal Peor real quick, and then we'll wrap it up and we'll save the rest for next Saturday. All right. Let's deal with Baal Peor. And this is still dealing with the Christmas tree. And we'll really go further and go deeper with the Christmas tree during the actual trial. So the Lord of the Klep, Phoenician phallic god, coupled with Asher's yonic clef. So the yonic is what? The female reproductive organ. That's what it means here. So Phoenician phallic god coupled with Asher's yonic clef, Israelites adopted his cult and celebrated sexual rites in his honor in the tabernacle until the Most High's reformers killed the celebrants. And you see this in Numbers 25. In particular, so it was Phineas, right? Phineas, the Negro, that's what his name means. Phineas, the Negro, took a stand, right? It was a couple making out in front of the temple, in front of Moses, in front of the people while they were mourning the death of 24 to 25,000 men that died of these venereal diseases for what? Messing around with these foreign women, right? So Phineas took a stand, and he killed the couple who was doing all kinds of sexual things in front of the temple. Right. So Israel adopted his cult and celebrated sexual rites in honor of the tabernacle until the Most High's reformers killed the celebrants. Baal Peor's symbol was a palm tree between two stones, a male genital symbol recalling the phallic god of Egypt, Osiris. And as you see here, we already dealt with this. Now I want to get too descriptive here. So let's deal with the Egyptian goddess Seshat. Right, we're going to close out with her, and then we'll pick up next week. Every year, 7 days before the new year, the ancient Egyptians would pay homage to the goddess Seshat, their tree of life. She is the Egyptian goddess of writing, measurement, calculation, record keeping, hieroglyphics, mistress of the house of books. She was also referred to as the lady of the builder's measure. All right, and here's images of Seshat right here. In this image, Seshat is holding the palm reed scepter that was used for keeping records of time, and which also is the tools used by an ancient Egyptian scribe. So we're going to stop right here. I know I gave you guys a lot of information. And matter of fact, I'll show one more image so that way you can see some of the older pictures. There's some older pictures. And as you see with the Israelites and the Babylonians, as far as the Sumerians, rather, you'll see that tree. Look at here. You see the tree right here. You see it right here. So what we'll do next week, we'll go further with this, and I'll further explain the tree, and I'll debunk the Jeremiah 10, what many will say, hey, that's no big deal. No, they're actually dealing with the tree. All right. And we're also going to the mistletoe. We're going to some other things that many of you guys may not be aware of. We'll go further into the Nicolaites. All right. So we'll do that next week. But just wanted to give you a sample here, guys. I know that with everything that I'm doing, with what I'm working on, took a lot of time out of my presentations, but really appreciate you guys for tuning in here. Really appreciate it. So I hope this blesses you guys. Let me see here. Let's see some of the comments before we wrap up. Sister Ashley, excellent teaching. Appreciate you, sis, for tuning in tonight. And again, next week we'll pick this up, and be on the lookout this weekend for part 2, and we'll deal with the pews. And we'll shut down every discussion or every video that many are making. So be on the lookout. And I'm going to share with you one of the key pews that was taken way out of context. I will actually point out a Hebrew word that's very key on the very pew that many have used to bring up this whole Arabic talking points. So we'll deal with that this weekend. And I hope you were blessed by this. My sister Shonda, I appreciate you for tuning in, and let's combine. If you want to be join in, and we could talk about it too. about the full presentation for us, the Christmas on Trial. I'll put some animations together and everything, and we could start it next week, and we could really put it together. So I want to just get with you, and maybe we could come up with a creative way and with your input, so we could really put it out there. Miss VMAC, thank you, Pastor. May our Father continually keep and bless you and yours. Appreciate it. Thank you, man, for the prayers. Thank you all for the prayers, and keep praying for our family. And I want to say this too: if you guys are in the Virginia area and you want to honor the Feast of Dedication, we will be doing it the weekend of the 19th. That is the Shabbat, and we're going to have a great time. So come on out and join us. There's no cost. We don't charge for anything. We no longer do church anniversaries. We never did the pastoral anniversaries. We always just did church anniversary. But, once really I started really understanding the Feast of Dedication, there's no need to have a church anniversary, because the Feast of Dedication is the time that we thank the Most High for allowing us to have a place of worship. So the Hebrew Israelite Messiah even honored the Feast of Dedication. It tells you he was going into, it was the wintertime when he celebrated it. So if you are in the Richmond area and you want to come on out, feel free to come on out. So with that being said, let's see here if there's any other comments or questions here. Let's see. Bible Study Hall 11. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 7. If any man of them believe not, bid you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatever is set before you, eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. We're going to deal with that. All right. We'll deal with that. We have to put it in this proper perspective, right? If any man that believe not bid you to feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatever set before you, eat, asking no questions for conscience sake. And we'll definitely break that down, which is pretty simple. And I'll make sure I put that in when we deal with the trial. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is one of the scriptures that many will use to try to justify eating whatever. You know what I mean? Like Boomerang would say, eat everything from the root to the tootie. You know what I mean? My favorite saying. All right. Appreciate you, my sister Carol, for tuning in and watching the chat. And I pray everyone has been cooperating and been on their best behavior, because remember, guys, we may be the only scriptures that others may see, and people are looking for a reason to speak against us. All right. So appreciate you, Mr. The Original School. Thank you again for your support as well. Thank you all. So again, I appreciate it for your support and watching the presentation. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And I thank you guys again. And let's just be on the lookout. Be patient and make sure, guys, that you're using your gift of discernment. Things are ugly out here right now. Desperate times. People are doing desperate things. And I do recall one of the sisters pointing out that they had to, I think, Sister Melinda had to point, she pointed out how they're trying to force the vaccines on her in her company. So a lot of us are going to be subjected to those pressures, or they're going to try to push it rather, but you don't have to take it. You don't have to make a decision that can literally mess your health up, because they don't know what's the side effects to these things. So let's stay prayed up for our sister Melinda and those that know the word of prayer. Keep her lifted in prayer, and the rest of our brothers and sisters. So with that being said, family, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So appreciate you guys, and thank you for tuning in. Shalom, and have a blessed night. And we'll show this advertisement again for part 2.
Garfield Reed claims that there's a gentleman who made a documentary on the subject and sold it to a university. He might be bringing out more information on that. That it was a gentleman who was, studied in Hebrew and looked at it and concluded that, I forget what the conclusion was. But
Garfield asked specifically, why would I even let, Pastor Kelly speak about him specifically? frankly, why would I even give him the floor to discuss these things? But I believe things do need to be discussed. This, in that sense, is bad if he made an original video trying to claim that these are our people building these churches were Hebrews and building these pews, they were Hebrews, and this was the faith that they were practicing, and they knew it, and the powers that be are hiding it. If it was used as an evangelistic tool and it come to find out it's not right and exact, the pastor has to say, all right, I made a little error here. The church people have to change certain things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, that still don't have anything to do with blacks in America being Hebrew, but that was just faulty. I can't stand on that and ride on it on the strength that somebody's a pastor, and just because pastors say, because y'all are just as bad as the black church now. Just believe in pastor without doing any research. I mean, maybe everybody that's an urban apologist don't automatically agree with everything that Vocab said. But like I said, Vocab, his good outweighs his bad to the urban apologetic community with the amount of work that he put in. Because all Vocab, basically, he's talking about Islam a little bit here and there, but he's heavy with the Israelite thing.
Wait, that don't sound right. Wait, 1 second, that don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right. That don't sound right.